some word problems using that skill of rounding and estimation that we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. So we're going to work on this problem together, and then we're going to be bouncing around the room to do some of the word problems that I have set up around the room. Kinda. I'll explain what we're doing around the room when we get here. Let's take it one step at a time. Alright, first things first, we're going to do this problem together. We know the first thing that we need to do when we get a word problem is to read it. Duh. Jennifer's family went on vacation and drove 183 miles on Saturday. Ooh, that's a long day. And 132 miles on Sunday. Her mom estimated how many miles they drove to the nearest 10 before adding the total. Her dad estimated how many miles they drove to the nearest 100 before adding the total. Which method provided a closer estimate? Explain your thinking. That is not what we are doing. Erase it and follow along, please. I want you to read that problem again in your head, and then go ahead and write an answer sentence at the top of the next blank page. Can someone read to me the question in this word problem? The question. There's one sentence that is very specifically a question. Gavin?
What is the closest estimation to the number?
Nope. Look at yeah, so that last part right here where it says which method provided a closer estimate. That is the question. That's what we should be looking at when we're restating and writing our answer sentence. What is our answer sentence going to sound like? Brayden?
Which method provided a closer estimate?
That'll work. This is going to be a long blank, but yes, blank method, aka strategy, provided a closer estimate. We're looking for a closer estimate. Method, I just told you, means strategy. What does it mean, a closer estimate? What is that talking about? If we're trying to find a closer estimate. Closer to what? Grace? Closer to what? Yeah. Closer estimate means we want to find something that's closest to the actual answer. So a closer estimate means something that's close to our actual answer. Alright. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have to decide who was closer. Let's start with who's first, Mom? Yeah, Mom estimated how many miles they drove to the nearest 10 before adding the total. Alright, let's start with the first section. On Saturday, how many miles did they drive? That came right from our problem. Emma? 183. I'm going to write that down. 183. I'm going to write that down. 183.
Can I do it?
Yeah. I'm saying I'm writing it because I'm writing it on my board, which means you should be writing it on your board.
I thought you said I'm writing on your board.
Nope. Underneath that, I'm going to draw a number line because I'm rounding. Now I'm going to stick 183 as one of my endpoints on that number line.
Wait, that's
No, I am not. I have to figure out where 183 goes. Mom is rounding by the nearest 10. Which digit is in the tens place? The 1, the 8, or the 3? Miranda? The 8. That's going to help me decide what my first endpoint is. Autumn, do you know what my first endpoint is? It's not 80. Look at that first. We still have to include our 100. 180, yep. The one end of your number line should say 180. If I'm rounding to the nearest 10, how long is my number line? Brinley?
10.
10. So what's going to be my endpoint now? Dominic? 190. There's one more step I need to do before I can just start putting numbers on my board. Scarlett? I have to find that midway point. Let's go ahead and make our tick mark in the middle of our number line. And what number is going to come right in the middle of 180 to 190? Emma?
185.
185. Are we done?
No.
No, not done. Now I need to figure out where's 183 gonna go. Go ahead. Go ahead and place it somewhere on that number line. Azalea, where did you place 183?
I haven't been to yet, but there's like 3 inches from 180.
Okay, so kind of in the middle of 180 and 185. Yeah, I think so too. Now that I know that, where is 183 going to round to? Brinley?
180.
180. I'm going to do a little loopy from 183 down to 180. So I know one part of what she is adding is 180. But now I have to do Sunday. How many miles did they drive on Sunday? Marvin? 132. So I'm going to write that on my paper, on my board. 132. I'm going to draw my number line just like last time. What's going to be my end point? Miranda, can you tell me what my first end point is going to be? Still thinking? Okay. Liam, what's my first end point going to be?
130.
130. Because I know we're rounding to the nearest 10, we can look at what's in the tens place to help us. What's going to be my end point? Autumn? 140, because I have a number line that is a distance of 10. What's my middle? My midway point? Liam?
145.
One what number?
145.
145?
Sorry, 35.
135. 135. Brayden, where would you put 132 on this number line now?
Like 2 inches away from 130.
Okay, pretty close to 130, which tells me that 132 is going to round where, Braden? To what? 130. Very good. Now, we're not done. If we look back in our problem, it says her mom estimated how many miles they drove to the nearest 10 before adding the total. So now we need to take 180 and 130 and add them together. $180 plus 130. Make sure you write that down on your paper somewhere. If you need room, move to the next page. Your notebook. Annabella, 0 ones plus 0 ones gives me a total of how many ones? 0. 8 tens plus 3 tens. How many tens is that? Lucy? 11. Can I squish 11 into one spot though? No.
You have to.
I have to take and trade one of my 10 of my tens into 100, which leaves me with 1 10 left over. 1 100 plus another 100 plus another 100 gives me, Brinley, 300. So Mom thinks they went about 310 miles. That's a lot of miles.
Yeah, but all the way from California to.
So wait, are we done?
No.
What do we have to do now? What's the next step? Ethan, what's our next step?
We now need to add that.
Now we need to figure out dads. I'm going to erase my tens just because I don't have enough space. You just keep going to the next page. If you can keep going underneath, you have room, go for it. All right, we're still going to start with 183. But what strategy does Dad use? Rounding to the nearest 100. Ooh, that's different. So I need to draw my number line. Now, what's going to be my first end point? I'm going to the nearest 100. Gavin? 100. If I look at my number in the hundreds place, it's a 1. That tells me I'm going to start at 100. What's going to be my ending point, Eliana? 200. Very good. My number line is much bigger this time. This is going to be a little tricky. What's my midway point? A little tricky. Arwen?
150.
Oh, very nice. 150. She figured that out because she knows that my number line is 100 numbers long. In the middle of a 100 is 50. Where's 183 gonna go? Bryce, where's 183 gonna go?
Go about close to the 2 and 130.
It's gonna go pretty close. Is it gonna go right next to 200? We have lots of numbers still to go, but it is gonna be closer to the 200. Which means, what does 183 round to then, Bryce? 200. Very good. Alright. Let's now go to 132. Draw our number line. Get us ready. Miranda, you think you can figure out what my first endpoint is going to be? What is it?
100.
The 100. Because again, our digit in the hundreds place is a 1. That tells us our first endpoint is 100. What's going to be our endpoint then? Emma? 200, very good. And once again, Dominic, our middle is going to be 150. Very good. 132 goes in a different spot. Braden, where's it going to go?
And then your 32 is going to go closer to...
Is it?
Yes. No, it's going to go closer to 100.
So here would be a really cool trick to find the middle between 100 and 150. What is going to be the middle between 100 and 150? What's the middle between 0 and 50? That's the same distance of numbers. I just moved it to an easier step. Another good way to think about this is money. You got 50 cents. What are two things that you can put together to give you 50 cents? Oh, weird how that happened so quick. Lucy? It's going to be 125. People are thinking of quarters. 2 quarters gives you 50 cents. That means the middle of 50.
4 quarters gives you $1.
Sure. The middle of 50 is going to be 25. 25 on one side, 25 on the other. So Brayden, now that you know 125 is there, where's 132 going to go? So it's actually a little bit closer to 150, right? Yeah. So Brayden said, oh, it's going to go pretty close to 125. Now this is tricky. Where is it going to round to? Which end point is it closer to? Scarlett? It is still closer to 100. We're looking at my ends. 200 and 100. 132 is closer to 100. Alright. Now we have to add. We have to take what Dad rounded and add them together to figure out the total amount. So we're adding 200 and 100. Zero ones plus 0 ones gives me how many ones, Annabella?
0.
0. Liam, 0 tens plus 0 tens gives me how many tens?
0.
2 hundreds plus 100 gives me how many hundreds, Arwen? 300.
Up by 10.
So now we need to figure out which one was closer. Which one gave a more specific answer? Brindley, what do you think?
Moms.
Why do you think that?
Because it's more than 300 and the answer is probably more than 300.
Okay, I like it. My answer is probably going to be more than 300. When you're rounding by the nearest 10, you're not changing that number a whole lot. Right? Remember we did 132, just went to 130. That's really close to the real thing. But 132 down to 100, that's a big jump. When you round by a smaller number, it gets more exact. When you round by a smaller number, it gets more exact. I want you to turn and explain that sentence to someone at your table. I'm going to say it one more time. When you round by a smaller number, it gets more exact. Go. Let's finish our problem. Whose method provided a closer estimate? I don't know what do you think. Moms. I think moms as well. So we're going to fill in our answer sentence Mom. Okay, it could be all kinds of different colors. That's fine. Mom's method provided a closer estimate. I know. Sometimes it does weird things like that.
That's a real weird thing.
Alright, so I'm going to go over what we're going to do with these pages. Maybe. Okay. So we have done something similar to this before. You are going to look at the word problems that I have around the room, but instead of solving the entire thing, you are only going to do one step. We have done this very similar before, yep. And then you rotate to the next problem, check what the person in front of you did, and then do the next step. Does that make sense? Okay, so the steps are going to look like this. Very similar to what we've been doing. First step, if nobody has done anything on that piece of paper, you need to read the problem and write an answer sentence. Easy peasy. Some of them just very simply say round to the nearest 10. Then you need to write your answer sentence as blah, 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 rounded to the nearest 10 is blank. Does that make sense? You'll see it. Number 2, read the problem and then draw a model. We've been using a ton of number lines. That's probably going to be what you draw. That includes your endpoints. That includes your midway point. And if it says round to the nearest 10 and the nearest 100, guess what? You have to do both. Number 3, read the problem. Look at the number line, and then you actually put the number on there and round it to the nearest endpoint. And then the last person is going to read the problem, look over the work, make sure it makes sense, make sure it's correct. Easy peasy?
Yeah.
Alright, so we're going to stay for the most part in our groups to do this.